Welcome to this video on looking at rising utility bills. It's currently summer of 2022 and there is a lot in the press and has been for quite a while now about the impact of rising utility bills on households. Now, as property investors and particularly with HMOs where you pay the bills, this is of increasing concern. So I thought it worth just taking a little bit of time to look at what is actually going on in the industry right now, the utility industry, and how that impacts you as a HMO investor. I thought it worth taking a little bit of time just to have a look at the background here. So I went to the Ofgem website. Now, for those of you that might not know, the gas and electricity sector in the UK is regulated and the regulator is called Ofgem. So I think that's something like Office of Gas and Electricity Markets. And this is meant to be an independent regulator to help regulate these competitive industries. So anyway, their website has a lot of industry information and history about what's going on. They indicate that in the last 12 months, so this isn't something that's just happened this summer, this has been a while in the pipeline, 29 companies have exited the market or been put into special administration. This means that 29 companies providing gas and electricity services to the domestic market have effectively gone bankrupt or been put into special administration. And this affects around 4.3 million domestic customers. Now, what you may not have realised up until this point is that Ofgem put a price cap in place on gas and electricity prices, which means that people pay no more than the price cap. Now, in previous years, this probably wasn't really on your radar, as the price cap was really the highest that companies could charge, and they would offer fixed term contracts at much less than this. So you could get some really good deals fixed for 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever that period was. Now, the market has changed to such an extent that companies are not really offering fixed term deals now at less than the price cap. When I last looked at some suppliers, you could still get a fixed term contract, but their base charge was actually higher than the current price cap. Now, historically, the price cap has been reviewed every 6 months, but with the increasing volatility in the market, Ofgem is looking at developing a new test to that for the price cap to be reviewed more frequently. I think the next price cap is due to come in on the 1st of October, and then they're talking about another one in January. So you can see they've already shortened the period for review of the price cap. So what is the price cap? Let's have a look at the definition here. The price cap is different depending on how you purchase your gas and electricity. If you have a standard meter in your property and you pay by direct debit, so effectively directly to the company, then the price cap will increase by £693 per year. Now, if you have what's known as a prepayment tariff, so this is where there is a meter in the property and you have to top it up in advance of using it, so whether that's through a phone app or a card or some sort of plastic key where you have to go to the local shop, put credit on and then put the card in the meter, and that then gives you access to gas and electricity. The price cap here is slightly higher and will be increasing by slightly more, so £708. The reason that that's slightly higher is that it costs more for the utility companies to manage and administer these prepayment meters, as they need to produce and issue the cards and keys in the first place, and also there will be a supplement to any shop which does provide this service to domestic customers. And the price cap in recent times has been primarily been affected by rising supply costs. So this is the underlying cost of gas and electricity in the first place, and also what's known as supplier of last resort costs, which I'll come on to explain about in a little while. So let's have a look at the breakdown here. You'll see these are the price caps that we've just discussed for direct debit, and this is for dual fuel. So it assumes that you are purchasing the gas and electricity from the same supplier. And you'll see in the winter of 21-22, the biggest contribution to the price cap was wholesale prices. So that amount in green, that's £528. You've seen that's now gone up to £1,077, so it's more than doubled. And this is the underlying cost of the gas and electricity in the first place. So you can see that has a massive impact on costs. The next biggest cost is the grey box above that. So previously it was £268, is now £371, and this is what's known as networks. So it does include the cost of the network, but it also includes what's known as supplier of last resort costs. In the regulated industries where competition is allowed, it is expected that some of these smaller companies will go out of business at some point, either due to lack of capital, lack of cash flow, changing market cycles. So what's in place there is this really safety net for customers called supplier of last resort. What that means is that if a smaller supplier does go bump for whatever reason, their customers are not just left in the lurch, and they're not just left without gas and electricity, but they're actually transferred to one of the much bigger suppliers in the marketplace who are deemed to be much more financially stable. So those customers would be automatically transferred over, and that's called supplier of last resort. Historically, if that did happen in the marketplace, the new company, the new supplier, would usually honour the contracts that those customers were on. I think in the current market, where people are being moved over to new suppliers, they're automatically being put on the default tariff, which means that the default cap price cap does apply to them. Obviously there are administration costs and transfer costs in there, and as we've had 29 companies going out of business in the last 12 months, that's a lot of customers to transfer over. I thought it worth just putting in these graphs as well. These are from the Ofgem website, and these show the shock to the market. So gas is sold in pence per therm, and you can see that this has shot up from around the 50 pence per therm mark to well over £3. It's come back down a little bit, but is much significantly higher than the historic rate, and this is what's causing the shock in the marketplace. Similar story is shown in the electricity market. Electricity is measured in pounds per megawatt hour, and again you can see here this has shot up very rapidly and much higher than historically, which again is causing the problems in the market. Let's have a look at how the price cap breaks down. Now this is typical usage paying on direct debit, remember, so this is where you're paying by direct debit rather than a prepayment meter, and you can see the last price cap period compared to the current price cap period. So you can see for electricity it's gone up from 21p per kilowatt hour to 28p, and the standing charge has shot up massively from 25p to 45p a day. Now gas has also increased. You can see the daily standing charge not so much, but the per kilowatt hour has also increased. Now do bear in mind that the price cap is per unit of gas or electricity. It's not at the total that you will be charged per year. So the usage is also important here. So you can still control the prices to some degree by using less of the gas and electricity. But you can see for electricity, for example, the daily standing charge has shot up. And I think that's important to realise when, you know, people are saying that the utility prices are going to go up to £4,000, £5,000, £6,000 a year. That is based on the assumption that people are paying by direct debit and have a typical usage. So some people who might be using less would be paying less. People who are using more would be paying more. So there are some actions you can take as a HMO investor. One of the first and simplest things is to check your property has appropriate loft insulation. As the property management company in the Northwest, we manage properties for ourselves and for our clients. When we onboard new HMOs that we're looking to manage, the first thing we do is stick our head in the loft, and it never fails to surprise me that people spend thousands, tens of thousands of pounds on a refurbishment, and yet don't check the loft and don't put appropriate loft insulation in place. This is a really cheap and easy way to start to help control the energy efficiency of your building and therefore the costs. Another simple task that can be done is making sure that the radiators on our gas central heating system have been properly balanced. Again, onboarding newly refurbished properties, I have yet to see a HMO where the builder and the plumber has actually taken the time and the care to properly balance the gas central heating system. This means that you've got controls on each radiator that are in the correct position in terms of flow of the water through the system, so that they work appropriately, that they have been set appropriately, and also that the pressure through the system has been appropriately balanced, so that not just one room or just the hallway is getting all the heat and the rest of the radiators on the system are barely getting warm. For larger HMOs, we are now seeing more and more people installing cistern boilers, and again, I've yet to see a system that has been correctly set up by a plumber or electrician. They simply whack it on at the highest heat setting and leave it on 24/7. It is usually programmable in some way, and just making sure, for example, that you're not making hot water 24/7 when you don't need to be. One of the biggest things that we have done in our properties and that we recommend to our clients is installing the Inspire thermostat system. You may have heard of the thermostat system, which many landlords have used in HMOs to help control the heating and utility bills, and that's all well and good. However, in my view, the Inspire is much better. The thermostat is a standalone system. You need to go to the actual property to set it up yourself, and it's only programmable to a certain extent. The Inspire system, as I'll show you a little bit later in this video, has much more functionality. So it has a website that you can access remotely, so you can be anywhere in the world and you can have a look at what's going on at your property. You can control the heating and set points and boost functions much more easily, and you can see what's going on in the house and how your tenants are using the heating. A really simple one is on moving, explain to your tenants how the heating system works. We specialise in helping people from overseas find high quality accommodation. So say, for example, they're coming to the UK for work or for study. They are often coming from countries where gas central heating is not the normal thing in their country, so they don't know how it works. They expect the radiators to be hot 24/7. They expect the radiators to come on, almost at the touch of a button. They don't understand how gas central heating system works. One of the things that we do for our tenants is spend a decent amount of time with them at the house. We meet them at the property, show them round, and show them how the heating works. And this way they get a really good idea of how they can live more harmoniously in the property to make sure that they are warm during the winter, but also that they're not wasting gas and electricity in the summer when it doesn't need to be on. Discuss with your tenants rising utility costs. They will be watching the news just as much as you are. They might be a little bit fearful that you're going to hike the rent up to cover their costs. So just have that open and honest chat with them. Ask them to be much more mindful of how they're living in the property, and to make sure that they are more considerate of how they use the utilities while they're living in your property. And finally, what you can do is have clauses in your AST for excessive utility usage. Many people do have a fair usage policy in their contract, which is fair enough. I definitely would look at that going forwards. You also, these days, might also want to consider having additional clauses in preventing people, for example, mining for cryptocurrency, which uses an inordinate amount of electricity. Or for example, if they've got an electric car, charging their electric car from your HMO as well. So all of these things are things to think about in terms of basic practical steps you can take now to have a look at controlling your utility costs going forwards. So I did just briefly want to explain the Inspire system to you. Now, we're not affiliated with them in any way, and I'm not selling their product. We've just been really impressed with the system, and has really helped us manage the properties on behalf of our clients, and also identify issues in the property as well. So for example, radiators not being appropriately balanced, system boilers not being set up appropriately, thermostats being put in inappropriate positions in the house. This system has allowed us to identify and then solve all of these problems on behalf of our clients. So it's quite a nice looking piece of kit, and then here are just some screenshots when you log in. So what you can do is you can set different time scales. So we've got weekend here, weekdays here, and you can set the temperature in different blocks of time. So you can see here overnight it never goes below 16 degrees, and then in the daytime it can come on for different periods of time. And again at weekend you can basically pick these up, drag and drop them, and make the length of time as long or short as you want. And again you can do separate days at a time, weekdays and weekends, and then 7 days as well. So there's lots and lots of functionality here. It has got a really good analytical side to it, so you can have a look at usage at different properties. Now if you also have several HMOs, if you have more than one, you can add them all onto the same web page. So you can effectively have a drop down list and have all of your properties on one portal, so that you can compare them at any one time and you can access them all from one place. This is just an example graph. You can set it for 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, a month, whatever time period you want, and you can have a look at the highest temperature that the thermostat has reached in that period, the lowest temperature, and how often that the thermostat has been calling for heat. And this is quite interesting as well. And again, in one of the properties that we manage for our clients, we realised that the system had been incorrectly installed because it was calling for heat 24 hours a day, and so that was obviously costing the client an incredible amount of money. So just by understanding the system and getting it set up properly, you can much better control costs. There's lots of different things that you can set within this as well. Again, this is just an example. You can allow the tenants a boost function for any period of time, and you can set the maximum temperature that they can boost it to. You can switch the programming, say between 1 day, 5 or 2 day, or a 7-day mode. And then you can also enable the program feature as well. You can also set a minimum temperature, so you can see this particular property, the property will never go below 15.5 degrees, and you can change this at any point in time as well. There will also be a frost guard on it as well, so for example over Christmas, if the tenants go home and the property's empty, you want to make sure that the heating does blip on occasionally to make sure you haven't got pipes freezing and bursting. So that's the end of this video. I hope that has been useful and given you some practical hints and tips on how to deal with rising utility costs and understanding them in the first place.